From the burial chambers of ancient Egypt to the contemporary homesteads of the Amish, humankind has been refining the craft of food preservation across thousands of years. Although it might seem like a skill exclusive to professional chefs, or perhaps someone in your family known for their exceptional kitchen abilities, preserving food is actually quite uncomplicated. In truth, your own body has likely benefited every instance you've consumed pickles, sauerkraut, or various other preserved items. These long-established techniques do more than just maintain food's freshness. They cultivate potent probiotics that enhance your gut health. And who better to impart these straightforward techniques than the Amish, who have spent generations perfecting these methods. They have eliminated the complexities, retaining only the effective practices, transforming food preservation into an activity anyone can undertake right in their own kitchen. In an era where our connection to food sources is increasingly tenuous, preserving food offers a means to reconnect with age-old traditions and regain control over our diet. Furthermore, when you preserve food yourself, you have complete certainty about its contents. No ambiguous ingredients or artificial preservatives are necessary. And it tastes even better. Before we get into the specifics of water bath canning, let's grasp what renders this Amish preservation method so effective. Water bath canning has sustained families through winters for generations. And while contemporary individuals might assume it demands specialized expertise, the Amish approach demonstrates the contrary. The science underpinning it delivers significant impact while remaining remarkably simple. The boiling water establishes an environment hostile to bacteria responsible for spoilage. Concurrently, the intense heat expels air from the jars, and upon cooling, natural processes create a vacuum seal that preserves your food's freshness for months. Now, here's a vital point the Amish discovered long ago. You cannot simply can every item grown in your garden. This technique is most effective for high-acid foods. Think juicy tomatoes, summer berries, tree fruits, and correctly pickled vegetables. The acidity provides an additional protective layer, ensuring your preserved food remains safe for consumption. Regarding vegetables, the Amish adhere strictly to procedure. Vegetables possess naturally low acidity, necessitating pickling in a vinegar solution prior to canning to elevate their acidity level. Those processing times indicated in Amish recipes aren't arbitrary figures. Distinct foods require varied durations. Pickles might necessitate 10 minutes, whereas a batch of strawberry jam demands 15. The genuine splendor of proper canning becomes apparent weeks later. While modern preservation techniques might keep food edible, water bath canning transforms it. Those dilly beans become crisper, pickles acquire intricate flavors, and fruit preserves mature into something that elevates ordinary toast to the extraordinary. The Amish understand that patience yields rewards, although they might confess that their finest preserves seldom make it to springtime. Embarking on water bath canning necessitates some fundamental equipment, but rest assured, many of these items are likely already stashed away in your kitchen cabinets. First on the list is a sizable water bath canner or any deep stock pot sufficiently tall to submerge your jars completely, with an additional inch of water covering them. The Amish have utilized the same robust pots for generations. They recognize that sophisticated equipment doesn't equate to superior preserves. You'll require several essential tools that enhance the safety and efficiency of the process. A canning rack prevents jars from rattling on the pot's bottom, though the Amish frequently substitute a simple folded towel when racks are unavailable. Jar lifters function like heavy-duty tongs specifically engineered for handling hot jars. They prove invaluable when dealing with boiling water. A wide-mouth funnel minimizes spills and maintains clean jar rims, which is critical for achieving a proper seal. Gather some clean dish towels, a sturdy ladle, and a plastic spatula for eliminating air bubbles. Concerning the jars, the Amish mandate proper canning jars equipped with two-piece lids, the flat lid and the screw band. No repurposed mayonnaise jars should be used here. Genuine canning jars are tempered to endure the heat and pressure of processing. Inspect each jar meticulously for any chips or cracks, particularly around the rim. Even the slightest flaw can hinder a proper seal. The preparatory stage is where numerous novices tend to hurry, but the Amish understand better. Initiate by washing your jars in hot soapy water. Even if they appear clean, this step eradicates any dust or residue that might impede proper sealing. Following this is sterilization. Submerge the jars in water and bring it to a boil for 10 minutes. Keep them hot until you are prepared to fill them, as abrupt temperature shifts can cause the glass to crack. Your lids demand special handling as well. Modern two-piece lids are not reusable for canning, though the bands are, so commence with fresh ones. The Amish technique for readying lids is dependable. Place them in a pan containing very hot, but not boiling water. This action softens the sealing compound without causing damage. Allow them to remain in the hot water until you are ready to utilize them. While your jars undergo sterilization, fill your canning pot halfway with water and begin heating it. The Amish time management strategy proves beneficial here. You desire the water to be hot, but not quite boiling, when you are set to introduce the filled jars. This circumvents that stressful wait for water to heat while your prepared food cools. Here's a professional tip directly from Amish kitchens. Organize your workspace before you commence preparing any food. Ensure your tools are within easy reach, your towels are ready for spills, and your surface is clean and clear. Position your hot water pot, your cooling area, a counter lined with a towel, and your filling station in a logical sequence. The Amish are masters of efficiency. They recognize that fumbling for equipment while hot jars await is both hazardous and prone to errors. Temperature management remains crucial throughout this entire procedure. The Amish have learned through experience that sustaining steady temperatures prevents jar breakage and guarantees proper sealing. Keep your clean jars hot, your lids warm, and your canning pot simmering. Now that your equipment is prepared, we move to the most vital phase of water bath canning. This is where the Amish dedication to detail truly stands out. Begin by retrieving your hot jars from their sterilizing bath, ensuring they remain upright to avoid contamination. The Amish favor using jar lifters for this operation, but if you lack one, sturdy tongs wrapped with rubber bands can offer a secure hold. Set the jars on a clean, dry towel. Never place them directly onto a cold counter, as the thermal shock could cause cracking. Prior to filling each jar, the Amish incorporate their characteristic flavoring components. For dill pickles, add a crushed garlic clove, half a teaspoon of dill seeds, and, if you desire some spice, red pepper flakes for heat. These aromatics infuse the preserve over time, developing complex flavors that simply cannot be hurried. Different recipes specify varying additions, perhaps a bay leaf for tomatoes or a cinnamon stick for fruit preserves. Next is the filling procedure. Your preserving liquid, be it a vinegar brine for pickles or syrup for fruits, should be at a full rolling boil. Employing a wide-mouth funnel and ladle, fill each jar with your prepared food. The Amish method ensures correct packing density, neither too loose nor too tightly packed. For pickles or whole vegetables, press them in firmly while leaving adequate space for the brine to circulate. For jam or crushed tomatoes, fill to maintain the appropriate headspace, generally 1 4-inch for jams and 1 2-inch for vegetables. Here lies a critical step often overlooked by many: removing air bubbles. Take your plastic spatula, never metal, as it might scratch the jar, and slide it between the food and the jar's interior wall, working your way around. You might be surprised at the quantity of bubbles that ascend to the surface. Add more hot brine or syrup if necessary to preserve the correct headspace. The Amish understand that trapped air bubbles can disrupt proper sealing and processing. Before affixing the lids, meticulously wipe each jar rim with a clean, damp cloth. Even a minute food particle or trace of grease can obstruct a proper seal. Retrieve the warm lids from their water bath using tongs or a magnetic lid lifter and center them precisely on each jar. Screw on the bands finger tight, a term that often perplexes novices. The Amish describe it aptly. Tighten just until resistance is felt, then turn approximately a 1/4 inch further. Over-tightening prevents air from escaping during processing. Insufficient tightening allows water to potentially seep in. Loading the jars into the canner demands careful handling. If utilizing a rack, position the jars so they avoid contact with each other or the pot sides. Lower the rack gradually to prevent water from splashing into the jars. Without a rack, place the jars on your folded towel within the pot, again maintaining separation. The water level must cover the jars by at least 1 inch. Add more boiling water if required. Once the water resumes a full rolling boil, initiate your timer. This is where Amish precision is valuable. Processing time fluctuates based on the recipe, jar size, and altitude. Do not begin timing until the water reaches a vigorous boil and sustain that boil throughout the processing duration. Keep a kettle of hot water nearby in case you need to replenish the pot. When your timer indicates the processing period is complete, resist the impulse to immediately extract the jars. The Amish have discovered that a gradual cooling phase considerably enhances the likelihood of success. Turn off the heat and permit the jars to rest in the hot water for 5 minutes. This resting interval aids in preventing liquid loss from the jars, a phenomenon known as siphoning, which can impede proper sealing. Following the rest period, lift your jars straight upward and out of the water. Keep them level. Tilting can disrupt the seal that is beginning to form. The Amish consistently stress the significance of this step. Dripping water onto sealed lids can jeopardize the seal, so lift each jar directly upward and tilt it slightly to allow water to drain off the lid, not into the sealing area. Position your jars on a thick towel or wooden board in a location free from drafts. The Amish traditionally employ thick wool blankets or multiple layers of towels to avert rapid temperature changes. Ensure at least 1 inch of space separates the jars to permit air circulation. This is when you might begin to hear the gratifying ping sound as the lids seal, although not all jars seal with an audible pop, so don't be concerned if you don't hear it. Now arrives the most challenging part, leaving them undisturbed for 24 hours. No tilting, no inspecting the seals, no tightening the bands. The Amish recognize that patience during this interval is paramount. The sealing process persists long after the jars are removed from the water bath, and disturbing them can interfere with achieving a proper seal. Keep children and inquisitive individuals away from the cooling jars. After 24 hours have elapsed, it's time for the final assessment. First, remove the bands. They have fulfilled their purpose and are unnecessary for storage. Verify each seal by pressing the center of the lid. It should be concave and securely attached. Attempt to lift the lid using only your fingertips, without the band. If it remains firmly in place, you have achieved a good seal. The Amish also inspect for any spurting or leakage around the rims when pressing the lid's center. Examine the jar's contents as well. The liquid should still cover the food, although some settling is expected. The color ought to be consistent, without any unusual discoloration. If you observe darkening at the top of the jar or if the liquid appears cloudy, these could indicate spoilage. The Amish never take risks with questionable seals or suspicious appearances. When in doubt, discard it. For the jars that pass inspection, wipe them clean with a slightly damp cloth to eliminate any residue or water spots. The Amish frequently note the date and contents on the lid using a permanent marker, a simple yet effective organizational method. Some even incorporate details such as the recipe variation or the garden source of the produce. Storage location is considerably important. The Amish typically utilize root cellars, but any cool, dark, dry area suffices. Avoid locations prone to temperature fluctuations, such as near the stove or in direct sunlight. Properly stored jars retain their quality for at least a year, though the Amish observe that most preserved foods are best consumed within that initial year. Store your sealed jars without the bands attached. This might appear counterintuitive, but it enables you to readily identify any seals that fail during storage. If you must replace the bands for stacking or transport, ensure they are completely dry and loosely affixed. Now that we understand how to preserve our vegetables and fruits, it's time to address meat. Before we engage in the hands-on procedure, let's appreciate why this ancient method has endured through time. When the Amish preserve meat using salt, they are leveraging a process that is both remarkably straightforward and scientifically astute. It represents one of those uncommon techniques where simplicity truly yields superior results. No elaborate equipment, no intricate measurements, just pure practical knowledge passed down through generations. The science underlying salt preservation, functions like a natural marvel. It converts fresh meat into something that not only endures longer, but also acquires entirely new flavors during the process. While modern preservation often merely aims to prevent spoilage, the Amish method actually enhances the meat over time, cultivating complex flavors unattainable through other means. Here's where the process becomes particularly fascinating. Salt preservation involves more than just dehydrating the meat. It initiates a sequence of natural reactions that would elicit appreciation from any food scientist. The salt establishes an environment where nature undertakes most of the significant work. While detrimental bacteria cannot survive, beneficial transformations occur simultaneously, enhancing both safety and taste. However, the most critical factor when salting your meat is the selection of the salt itself. Simplicity is paramount. The ingredient list should essentially be a single word: salt. The elegance of the Amish approach to meat preservation is rooted in its simplicity. In contrast to modern preservation techniques that often necessitate an extensive shopping list, you require only 3 items: high-quality meat, a large container, and pure salt. Let's examine these components to ensure you begin with the appropriate materials. Firstly, your container must be sufficiently large to hold your meat comfortably, allowing some extra space. The Amish have traditionally employed wooden boxes or food-grade plastic containers. Either option is suitable, provided it is clean and robust. The crucial characteristic is not the material, but the dimensions. Your meat should be able to lie flat without contacting the container's sides. Consider it as providing your meat a roomy yet snug environment for the subsequent few days. Regarding salt, this is where many individuals encounter difficulties. Visit your local store and meticulously read the labels. You are searching for salt with precisely one ingredient listed: sodium chloride. No iodine, no anti-caking agents, no added exotic minerals. The Amish insist on this purity because additives can disrupt the preservation process. Kosher salt or pure sea salt are your optimal choices. Now let's discuss the actual preservation procedure. The Amish method might appear almost excessively casual to contemporary sensibilities. There involves no weighing, no measuring, no exact calculations. Instead, they adhere to a beautifully simple principle. Take your meat and cover it entirely with salt. Every surface receives treatment, and the amount that naturally adheres is precisely what is needed. It's akin to giving your meat a thorough salt coating. Be generous, but do not attempt to force more salt to stick than adheres naturally. Here is a vital step that many novices overlook: positioning the meat on a cooling rack inside your container. This isn't merely about maintaining order, it is essential for effective preservation. As the salt performs its function, it will extract moisture from the meat. This liquid requires a place to collect, and you do not want your meat resting in its own brine. The rack provides the necessary elevation, allowing gravity to assist in the process. Once your meat is appropriately salted and situated on the rack, it's time to identify the correct storage location. The Amish traditionally utilize ice houses or root cellars, but don't fret if you lack either. Your refrigerator will suffice perfectly. The essential factor is maintaining a consistently cool temperature. Place the container in your fridge, ensuring it remains level and stable. Now begins the waiting period. 5 days is your general target, although the duration might vary depending on the size and thickness of your meat. The Amish practice involves letting nature indicate readiness. Observe the liquid seeping from the meat. When it slows down or ceases entirely, that's your cue. This typically occurs around the 5-day mark, but rely on your visual assessment rather than strictly adhering to the calendar. When moisture no longer accumulates at the bottom of your container, you are prepared for the subsequent step. Following those 5 days of patient waiting, we arrive at the stimulating part, verifying whether your preservation efforts have succeeded. Pick up your meat, and the initial observation you'll make is the significant alteration in texture. What began as soft, pliable flesh should now feel discernibly firm and rigid, almost resembling a well-cooked steak that has been allowed to cool. This firmness is not merely superficial, it signifies that the salt has penetrated deeply and executed its preservation task correctly. Run your hands across the surface. The meat should feel considerably denser and more compact compared to when you started. Amish tradition dictates that properly cured meat should possess a feel akin to hardwood, solid, yet not entirely inflexible. If any areas still feel soft or unusually pliable, that constitutes a warning sign suggesting uneven salt penetration. Such pieces might require additional time treated with fresh salt. Now comes a step that might seem counterintuitive: rinsing off all the salt you meticulously applied. Using cool, clean water, thoroughly rinse every surface of the meat. The Amish stress the significance of this step. Your objective isn't to wash away the salt that has already permeated the meat, but rather to remove the excess surface salt that could render your final product overly salty for consumption. Be thorough yet gentle. You are merely rinsing, not scrubbing. After rinsing, procure a non-linty towel. Old cotton dish towels are ideal. Pat the meat dry, paying careful attention to every crevice and fold. The Amish emphasize the importance of this drying phase. Any residual moisture could foster undesirable mold growth during the hanging process. Invest adequate time here. Proper drying is vital for success. Next follows a step demanding a steady hand, creating a small aperture in the corner of your meat for hanging. Select a location near one edge, preferably through a fatty section if available. The hole should be just large enough to accommodate your S-shaped hook. The Amish traditionally employ hand-forged hooks passed down through generations, but any food-safe hook will suffice, provided it is sufficiently strong to bear the meat's weight. The final step entails locating the ideal spot to hang your meat. You seek a place that sustains a steady temperature between 50 to 60 degrees, the Amish optimal range for aging. This area should also be dark, as light can adversely affect the quality of your preserved meat. While the Amish might utilize dedicated smokehouses or specific corners of their cellars, you can establish a suitable environment in a basement or a cool closet. The key elements are consistent temperature and adequate air circulation. Hang the meat so it does not contact any walls or other surfaces. The Amish typically allow their meat to hang for at least 5 days under these conditions, enabling it to develop those intricate flavors characteristic of salt-preserved meat. During this period, you might observe the meat acquiring a slightly darker exterior. This is normal and actually desirable, indicating proper aging. Once your meat has completed its hanging duration, you will possess a preserved product capable of lasting for months when stored correctly. The Amish determine readiness by observing a uniformly firm texture and a rich, deep color throughout the meat. At this juncture, your preserved meat is prepared for storage or immediate use, a testament to the efficacy of this simple yet potent preservation technique. Before delving into jars and brine, let's comprehend what establishes fermentation as a fundamental element of Amish food preservation. This isn't merely an antiquated method. It's a process that converts commonplace vegetables into nutrient-dense foods capable of lasting months without refrigeration. Here is a remarkable fact. Approximately 30% of foods consumed globally undergo fermentation. From your morning coffee to chocolate, fermented foods are ubiquitous. The Amish have preserved these traditional methods because they function exceptionally well and yield uniquely delectable flavors. The science involved is beautifully straightforward. Beneficial bacteria transform the natural sugars present in vegetables into lactic acid. This acid serves as a natural preservative while simultaneously creating those characteristic tangy tastes. You can ferment nearly anything from your garden. Cabbage evolves into sauerkraut, cucumbers are transformed into pickles, and even ordinary carrots acquire complex, intriguing flavors. Temperature and salt assume crucial roles in achieving successful fermentation. The Amish target a range of 65 to 72 degrees Celsius, warm enough for beneficial bacteria to flourish, yet cool enough to inhibit unwanted microbial growth. Salt serves more than just flavoring. It establishes the ideal environment for beneficial bacteria while discouraging harmful ones. The most advantageous aspect? Fermentation actually enhances the nutritional value of food. Those beneficial bacteria synthesize vitamins and probiotics that promote gut health, concurrently breaking down compounds that can render raw vegetables difficult to digest. It represents nature's method of improving already good food. Let's assemble everything necessary for successful fermentation. And believe me, there is beauty in the simplicity of this supply list. First are your containers, wide-mouth mason jars, or traditional fermentation crocks. The Amish favor crocks passed down through generations, but clean glass jars function perfectly well. Regardless of your choice, ensure it is immaculately clean, although excessive sterilization, as required in canning, is unnecessary. Your salt selection is enormously important here. Similar to meat preservation, you seek pure salt devoid of additives. Iodized table salt is strictly prohibited. It can impart a dark color and bitter taste to your ferments. Sea salt or kosher salt lacking anti-caking agents represent your optimal choices. The Amish employ a straightforward measurement that has proven reliable over time. 3 large tablespoons of salt for every 5 labies of vegetables, though it's advisable to verify this, as requirements differ for each recipe. Water quality can significantly impact your ferment. The Amish traditionally utilize spring water, but if unavailable, filtered water is a suitable alternative. Avoid tap water if feasible, as chlorine can interfere with the beneficial bacteria you aim to cultivate. If tap water is your sole option, allow it to sit uncovered overnight, enabling the chlorine to dissipate. Now regarding your vegetables, freshness is absolutely paramount. The Amish typically ferment vegetables on the same day they are harvested, and for sound reason. Fresher produce contains a higher concentration of natural bacteria essential for initiating fermentation. Select vegetables that are firm, unblemished, and at their peak ripeness. If purchasing from a store, opt for organic varieties when possible to avoid preservatives that might hinder fermentation. You will also require something to maintain your vegetables submerged beneath the brine. While contemporary fermenters might employ specialized weights, the Amish have resourcefully utilized available materials. A clean stone or a cabbage leaf serves perfectly. Some even utilize a small plate that fits snugly inside the jar. The objective is to keep all contents submerged in the brine, where the beneficial bacteria can effectively perform their function. Preparation is essential for success. Begin by thoroughly cleaning your workspace. The Amish understand that cleanliness prevents undesirable bacteria from disrupting the fermentation process. Wash your vegetables thoroughly, but refrain from using soap or vegetable washes. Plain water suffices. You do not want to eliminate all the beneficial bacteria naturally residing on the vegetable surfaces. When cutting your vegetables, size is significant. The Amish typically shred cabbage for sauerkraut into thin, uniform strips, approximately the thickness of a quarter. For cucumbers, they might leave them whole for crisp pickles or slice them for a quicker fermentation. Whatever size you opt for, consistency is crucial. Pieces should be roughly equivalent in size to ensure uniform fermentation. Preparing your brine solution adheres to the time-tested salt ratio mentioned previously. Dissolve your salt in unchlorinated water until it becomes completely clear. The Amish verify proper salinity using a simple test. A fresh egg should float in correctly salted brine, or alternatively, a clean potato should just barely emerge above the surface. While not scientifically precise, this method has proven reliable for generations. Now arrives one of the most critical aspects of fermentation: packing your vegetables correctly. The Amish have refined this skill over generations, and their techniques guarantee consistent outcomes every time. Initiate by placing your prepared vegetables into your clean jar or crock, but resist the temptation to simply pour them in. Instead, add them layer by layer, pressing down firmly with clean hands or a wooden tamper after each addition. The traditional Amish cabbage leaf technique is brilliantly simple, yet highly effective. Retain a few whole, clean outer leaves from your cabbage. These will function as a natural barrier separating your shredded vegetables from the brine surface. Tuck these leaves atop your packed vegetables, allowing them to curve slightly upward along the container's sides. This forms a sort of natural seal that aids in keeping everything submerged. If you opt not to use the cabbage leaf method, clean stones serve as excellent weights. The Amish often possess specific fermentation stones used exclusively for this purpose. Ensure you boil the stone for 10 minutes prior to each use to guarantee cleanliness. Position it directly atop your vegetables. It should be sufficiently heavy to maintain submersion, but not so weighty as to crush your meticulously packed produce. For individuals lacking access to suitable stones, there exists a clever modern alternative that the Amish have adopted: a plastic bag filled halfway with brine, not water, to prevent issues if it leaks. This method proves particularly useful for wide-mouthed jars. The bag conforms to the shape of your vegetables while effectively keeping them submerged. Just ensure you utilize a new clean zip-top bag. Proper headspace is vital for successful fermentation. The Amish typically leave approximately 2 to 3 inches of space between the brine surface and the container's rim. This allowance accommodates the bubbling that occurs during active fermentation and prevents overflow. Insufficient headspace results in messy countertops. Excessive headspace can elevate the risk of undesirable mold development. Temperature control significantly impacts your fermentation success. The ideal range lies between 65 to 72 degrees, 18 to 20 Celsius, and the Amish excel at identifying the perfect location within their homes. A basement corner frequently serves well, or any spot shielded from direct sunlight and heat sources. During summer months, they might relocate ferments to root cellars, where temperatures remain more stable. The chosen location must be accessible, as you will need to check your ferments daily. The Amish suggest keeping ferments in a dark area, yet one that is easily reachable for monitoring. A kitchen cabinet functions adequately, provided it isn't adjacent to your stove or dishwasher where temperatures fluctuate. You'll recognize fermentation is active when you observe bubbles ascending to the surface, typically within 24 to 48 hours. This is what the Amish refer to as the living sign, and it serves as your initial confirmation that everything is progressing correctly. The brine will start to become slightly cloudy, and you might detect a mildly sour yet pleasant aroma developing. These are all positive indicators that your beneficial bacteria are diligently working. Once your fermentation commences, daily maintenance becomes paramount for success. The Amish approach to monitoring ferments integrates meticulous observation, utilizing all your senses. Each day, ideally at a consistent time, you must inspect your fermenting vegetables. This practice extends beyond merely preventing issues. It fosters an understanding of the fermentation progression. Let's discuss burping your jars, a crucial daily chore if employing sealed containers. The fermentation process generates carbon dioxide, which must be released to avert pressure accumulation. Simply open the lid briefly, listen for the satisfying effervescent sound, and then reseal it. The Amish traditionally utilize open crocks that obviate the need for burping, but if using mason jars, this daily gas release is indispensable. A practical tip: position your jars within a shallow dish to capture any potential overflow during this procedure. The time frame for fermentation varies, but anticipate a minimum of 5 days, with most ferments achieving their peak quality between 1 to 2 weeks. Temperature significantly influences this. Warmer conditions accelerate the process, whereas cooler temperatures retard it. The Amish do not expedite this process. They understand that slower fermentation often cultivates more complex flavors. Now, how can you ascertain when your ferment is ready? The Amish depend on 3 primary indicators. Firstly, taste. Begin sampling your ferment after the 5th day. You seek an agreeably sour flavor devoid of any sweetness. The taste should be tangy yet not excessively acidic. Sample small amounts daily to monitor the evolving flavors. The second indicator is smell. A properly fermented vegetable should possess a clean, sour fragrance. If you perceive any unpleasant odors, anything suggesting rotten eggs or a genuinely foul smell, something has gone awry. The Amish maintain that your nose knows. Trust your sense of smell, as it frequently provides the initial warning of problems. Visual cues offer your third checkpoint. The brine ought to be cloudy but not slimy. Some white yeast floating atop is entirely normal and can be skimmed off. The Amish do not concern themselves with this. However, if you observe any fuzzy growth or atypical colors, pink, orange, or black, that signals the need to discard it and begin anew. Remember, yeast appears white and powdery, whereas mold is fuzzy and colored. Storage temperature becomes critical once your ferment attains the desired flavor profile. The Amish traditionally transfer their finished ferments to root cellars, where temperatures remain between 32 to 50 degrees, 0 to 10 degrees. This action decelerates the fermentation process without halting it entirely. In contemporary homes, the refrigerator functions perfectly well. Just bear in mind that fermentation persists even under cold storage, albeit at a significantly reduced rate. Common issues often have straightforward remedies. If your vegetables float above the brine, adjust your weight. If the brine tastes excessively salty, make a note for future batches, but avoid adding water now, as it could dilute the protective acidity. If the taste is overly sour, your ferment might be ready sooner than anticipated. The Amish approach to troubleshooting is proactive. Detect problems early through daily monitoring, and most issues can be averted before they escalate.